Good evening. We have many troubles in this life. Most people regard their life as to be something that can be quite troubled at times, and other times to be okay, something that they can deal with. So they have good days and bad days, or so they say. Buddha took this into account when he spoke about suffering, and that that we all suffered, but there was no need to suffer, and that if you followed Buddha's path, you would not suffer. You would learn a way to not suffer. So I would like to discuss several things that are in regards to suffering and how we suffer and why we suffer. One of those things is self-cherishing. The concept of self-cherishing is pretty straightforward. We cherish ourselves over others. We see ourselves as more valuable than other individuals. Now, as we go through this life, this can take many forms. It can take very subtle forms, it can take gross forms or subtle forms. Now, when we have self-cherishing, basically it can take, let's discuss the subtle forms. It can be something like taking more food, thinking that you need to win an argument with someone, competing with other people, having ideas that others are odd or funny, that you are better than other people, that other people do not measure up to you or to your friends, your group, that sort of thing. This is what we call self-cherishing. Now, it can also be in gross forms too, where entire populations of people see themselves in a very self-cherishing way, that we deserve to take over your land, to take over your country, your resources, whatever it may be. Now, also companies can be self-cherishing, because I think in this contemporary world in which we live in, companies have somewhat, or corporations have somewhat of a profile of people. They seem to have an entity in themselves. We can discuss that on another show. What I would like to stick with today is, how do we deal with our self-cherishing? We are surrounded by others that are also self-cherishing, and as such, how do we stand apart from them? Well, one way that we can do this is that we can embody the principle of exchanging ourselves for another. What this means is that, let's say we see someone who is crying a lot, and we look at that person, and perhaps we think to ourselves, in a certain mood, we think, oh, get over it, you know, or you'll be okay, there's nothing to cry about, that sort of thing. Now, if we truly have compassion, we can exchange ourselves for that person. We can put ourselves in that person's shoes, so to speak. We can say, well, if I was this person and I felt like they do right now, I would feel pretty bad. And I would be seeking help from someone. Now, we can exchange ourselves with all kinds of people. If we see homeless people, we can exchange ourselves with those homeless people. Do we do this? Not likely. If we see other people that are suffering in some material way or physical way, if we exchange ourselves for that person, as some do, we can see them in this light, and we will be much more compassionate to them. The key here is compassion and unconditional love. And I wish to speak to that for a moment. We have two kinds of love. We have conditional love and we have unconditional love. Mostly we have conditional love. Mostly our love is about, well, I love you if you look like that, act like that, think like that, do this for me or do that for me. I love you if you, I love my country if my country is good to me, and conversely, I love my friends, I love my mate, I love my children, I love my parents if they do certain things for me. If they don't do these things, then I threaten to either not love them or I just don't love them. Now, this is conditional love, what we refer to as conditional love. There is another kind of love, it's unconditional love. Unconditional love is something where we love them, we love others, no matter how they behave towards us. Whether they like us or not, whether they find us to be peculiar or odd or thinking differently than they do and they are threatened by it, we still have love for them. This is a very important concept. Very few people embody this without hearing about it. Once you hear about it, then you can embody it. Then you can change yourself in this way. So, we have self-cherishing, we have compassion, and we have unconditional love. And these are very strong things. Unconditional love allows us to be at peace with everyone. Unconditional love and compassion allow us to be peaceful in this world. And this is a very different state of affairs than what people normally are feeling like. Now, I'd like to, I have some questions here. I'd like to answer them tonight. I also wanted to discuss, well, I'll just go to the questions and then it'll work into the next discussion. First question, and it's, I'll just read it. The first question, my first question is about forgiveness. How do we know when you tell yourself you have forgiven someone? If you actually have, does saying I forgive this person with all my heart and wish them the best mean you have actually forgiven them? One cannot forget the actual act in question, so how is one sure one has forgiven if they are not in contact with this person? Well, if someone has violated us in some way, it is unlikely that we'll forget about it. However, memories can fade over time, and we can forgive anyone of any act that they have done. And forgiveness and unconditional love go hand in hand. Now, we need to discover this capacity for unconditional love. We can do this in meditation. We can generate compassion. We can think of unconditional love as the love of our mother, that our mother had for us. Our mothers, even if we had a mother who didn't love us all that much, we may have, at least she loved us when she gave birth to us and was close to us during that period of time. So this is the love that is unconditional love. Many times there have been crimes committed by people, and yet they can be horrendous crimes, but yet in the end, their mother will stand there and say, I forgive this, my son, my daughter, I forgive them. And this is what we call unconditional love. We can all empathize with this, and we can all have an understanding of unconditional love. Now, if we see all other people as our mother, then we will have unconditional love for them. And this is something that we can do. We can look at all of our friends, all of the people that we see traveling about in our life, the people we come into contact with, and we can think of each of them as our mother, our father, our brother, our sister, our friend. People that we forgive all of their transgressions towards us, people that we forgive all their dualistic notions and dualistic attitudes towards us. We can forgive anyone, anything. And Buddha talked at great length about forgiveness. So if we come back to this question then, and we say, how do you know when you tell yourself you have forgiven someone? You have forgiven them if you can have unconditional love for them. If you can say to yourself, it really doesn't matter what they did, I still have love for them. I still have unconditional love for them, and I wish them the best. If you can make this statement to yourself, then you are at peace and you have actually forgiven them. Now, this is a goal. Many of us, or all people, have had things happen in their life that are very difficult to forgive. Things on the job, things with friends, things with family. Yet we can forgive all of these things if we have unconditional love and compassion for them. If we have compassion for others, we cannot be mad at them. If we truly have compassion for them, how can we be angry at someone or annoyed at someone that we have a complete compassion for? We can't. Compassion allows us to accept all things. I often refer to compassion as the great annihilator. If you follow Tibetan Buddhism, you know that there is a entity referred to as Manjushri, and Manjushri has a sword to slay our dualistic tendencies that we habitually continue to use in our life. If we look at that, we can say that the compassion is this sword. Okay, so we can see compassion as the sword that destroys the things that trouble us. So if we find someone who's peeved us in some way, or someone who has done something that we don't like, or something that we are uncomfortable with, we feel that it's wrong what they've done, we can look at this person, and if we have complete compassion for them, we can only have even more compassion for them for the act that they have just done. If we see someone act out in anger, if we see someone act out in greed, if we see someone act out in just annoyance, hatred, self-hatred, if we see someone act out in a way of ignorance in the environment, someone who does not have any comprehension of the interconnectedness of we are to each other and to our environment, if we see that, we witness that, and we can have even more compassion for this individual, because we can accept them even more and understand that this person, if we exchange ourselves with them, this person is very troubled, and that's why they behaved in this way. So they're troubled, they behaved in this way, and we can have compassion for them. And so, in other words, the troubles of another, the difficulties of another, can inspire us to love even more, to have even more compassion and more love for them and more love for the world. If we look at the world today, I think at one point there was something about 50 wars on the planet. I don't know how many wars there are on the planet today. There are many. And as such, we need, if we look at this, we say, how can human beings do this to each other, do this to not only the combatants, but also the people who live there, the hardships that they endure, and the brutality that they endure. How can they do this to each other? Well, if we look at that and we say, they can do this to each other because they are thinking in dualistic terms. They think that they are one, and that everyone else is other. And as such, they have the ability, therefore, to do what they wish. This is self-cherishing. They cherish themselves above all others. We see these situations, we read about them in the newspaper, perhaps we see them in our own country and where we live, perhaps we see them in our neighborhoods where we are. We need to understand that these acts are motivated by self-cherishing. And when we see self-cherishing in another being, we need to, our response needs to be compassion and unconditional love, the love of a mother for this person who really doesn't like us and perhaps wishes to violate us in some form or another, take something away from us. So if we have this, we have a great peace in this world. We have a great peace and we have a great understanding. If we can do this in totality, we have become an enlightened person. All people have the capacity to become enlightened. All people have Buddha nature. And this Buddha nature allows us to become enlightened. Enlightenment for a human being, for someone fortunate enough to be a human being. Enlightenment means the uncovering of our Buddha nature. We can think of this as veils covering over our true nature. The true nature is our Buddha nature, and that nature, that Buddha nature, is enlightenment. So in each of us then, there is this Buddha nature. In each of us, there is the potential to become enlightened by uncovering our Buddha nature. And the way that we access that uncovering of those veils is by unconditional love and compassion. Now, the second question, this is about boyfriends. My boyfriend and I, and girlfriends. My boyfriend and I have been dating for 5 years. There still doesn't seem to be the level of commitment that I'm looking for. It doesn't seem to be going anywhere. The same fights, the same breakup, and get back together again over and over again. We should probably just end it and move on, but I really love him and neither one of us can seem to do that. And I'm not sure what I want to happen anyway. What do you think? Well, the first thing I would say is that we need to comprehend that all life is temporary. All life is temporary. All of us will pass away one day. And so, all life is temporary. And all relationships, therefore, are temporary as well. Many people in this culture, we have parents or grandparents who were married young and stayed together for 50 years, or their silver and gold anniversaries, and they stayed together for seemingly forever. And we have to say then that this seems to be very nice. However, that relationship is still temporary because one day it will come to an end. So we have to understand that all relationships are temporary. But there are some relationships that are more meaningful, and these are relationships where we spend a great deal of time with someone and we fall in love with them. The relationships with our mother and father, brothers and sisters, family, friends, and our lovers as well. Now, these relationships are very meaningful, and some are exceptionally meaningful to us in our life. There is that phrase, the love of one's life. Well, what this means is that this is a situation where this relationship was very meaningful. But if we regard our relationships as temporary, it doesn't mean that we have to have short-term relationships. We can have a very long-term relationship that lasts our entire life. But if we regard it as temporary, we will always be attempting to make it fresh again, to love that person and realize that one day this person will be gone, and so will I. This is something that we don't normally think. We think about, oh, let's meet, let's get married, let's buy a house, an apartment, let's do this, let's do that, let's move ahead with our careers, let's have children. Yet all of this is very temporary, and we need to have a comprehension of this steady changing state of this, that it is not a permanent state, and as such this will inspire us to love even deeper. Now, we can love someone very much, but we can also be unable to live with them. And sometimes we can have great love for someone, unconditional love for someone, especially someone who meditates, someone who's a Buddhist, or not. You don't have to be a Buddhist just to have unconditional love. But someone who loves a great love in our life, we have to understand that we may not be able to live with this person. We may not be able to be that close to them, but we can still have love for them. And this also has to be put into your thinking. So in terms of this question, I would say that the level of commitment is not there. So there seems to be some issue there. And perhaps these partners have great love for each other, but perhaps they can't live with each other. And this has to be decided by each person, of course. But if we strive for unconditional love for all beings, then our relationships with all other beings will be much easier, much easier. This love is, when we meditate, this love is something that we feel when we meditate, when we touch emptiness in our meditation. We have this great love. We can fill that space with love. Many people say that emptiness is empty, devoid of all things. Technically, emptiness is something, the technical explanation is no center, no edge, no color, no size, there's something else in there. But one thing we can say is that emptiness is constantly changing. It is constant change. Now, as such, we have to say that this constant change is a wonderful thing. Although human beings seek to make things permanent, and they seek to say that we don't want constant change, yet constant change is inevitable. We all get older. Everything that comes together comes apart. All things, buildings are built and they one day come apart. Countries are put together and built and one day are diminished. So societies, groups, clubs, relationships, all things are temporary. And yet we can take great joy and solace in this if we understand that this is a wonderful thing, that this temporary nature is a wonderful thing if we give up our grasping and our attachment to things being the way that we perceive them to be today. If we say, well, everything's perfect right now, I have all the things that I want, and I'm very happy, and yet we know that this will change, and that if all things are temporary, then this will change as well. And we hold on to it. So when it starts to change, when things start to change for us, we become very unhappy because of our grasping at the past. But it's not to say that all things can be permanent, constant happiness if we realize that it doesn't matter what we're doing, that it is really about us and not others, that it is about what rises in our mind, not what rises in the minds of others. We cannot control other people, and as such, we can only deal with what rises in our mind. We can have great peace in this life, and as such, this has to come from a realization that it is what rises in our mind is that what we have effect over. The very things we need to know that our mind in itself, its true nature, has no thoughts of its own. It only has the thoughts of that rise within it. Thoughts constantly rise within it. That is the nature of our mind. So even in a question like this, the very question itself is not understanding that things are temporary. But if you look at this question and you say, well, things are temporary, the commitment is not here, then I need to find commitment, the level of commitment that I wish to find. And we can find this, but this level of commitment that we wish to find is often within our own self. It's often within our own mind, the various things that mind. This is a theme that I will continue to come back to. It's a very important theme, and it has to do with dualism and how we see the world. It's very important that we understand things in this way. So I'm pretty much out of time now, and I have gotten to 2 more questions. But what I would like to say for today is that we need to understand that there's one thing that we need to understand. It is about us and not them, okay? So as we go through this life and we find ourselves troubled by this or that, annoyed by this or that, drivers, other people, people at work, jobs, rules, it is about us. Always it continues to come back to our interpretation of events. What rises in our mind and what we follow. Do we follow these thoughts? But if we let go of these thoughts, we have peace and we have happiness. And many people think we can't have happiness. But if we have peace, then we will have happiness. And this is a very important thing. Okay, so I'd like to leave you with that and to wish you well in this regard, that you see that it is us and not them. It is me, not you. It is what rises in my mind that troubles me. We have no control over other people. We have no control over anything. Emptiness is constant change. So I would like to leave you with those words, and thank you. Talk to you next time. Bye-bye.